You think you know your family until they trade your dreams for a beachfront vow? I'm Elena Harper, and I learned that lesson the hard way. Picture this Napa Valley, California, a place where vineyards stretch like promises under a golden sunset. My engagement party was supposed to be the pinnacle of joy, a night to celebrate 6 years of love with Noah Bennett, the man who'd become my anchor. The ballroom glowed under chandeliers, their light dancing on crystal glasses. The air carried the scent of lavender, Pinot Noir, and hope. Laughter rippled through the crowd, guests clinking flutes of champagne, their smiles as warm as the summer evening. Noah stood beside me, his hand steady on my waist, his quiet strength a contrast to the room's dazzle. We'd built a life together, brick by brick, through late-night talks and shared dreams. This night was ours, or so I thought. My mother, Margaret Harper, floated through the crowd, her smile polished but brittle, like glass waiting to crack. My brother, Ethan, was late, as always, his absence a shadow I couldn't ignore. I brushed it off, telling myself it was just nerves. After all, who wouldn't be nervous on a night like this? But beneath the music, the clinking glasses, the soft hum of congratulations, something felt wrong. Margaret's eyes darted toward me, then away, her laughter too sharp. Ethan finally arrived, tossing his jacket over a chair like he owned the place, his smirk cutting through the warmth of the room. My father, Richard, stood in the corner, his gaze heavy, like a storm cloud waiting to break. I tried to focus on Noah, on the ring glinting on my finger, on the future we'd planned. But the weight of their stares pressed against me, a warning I couldn't yet name. I didn't know it then, but my family was already weaving a plan to unravel everything I'd built. 2 weeks earlier, they'd sat me down, their voices cloaked in false sweetness, and asked me to sacrifice my future for Ethan's. They wanted my inheritance, the $150,000 my grandfather left me for my wedding, to fund Ethan's lavish Maui nuptials. They called it a loan, but their eyes said otherwise. I'd said no, thinking that was the end of it. But standing there, surrounded by candlelight and celebration, I felt the truth creeping in. This night wasn't mine. It was theirs. And they were about to make sure I knew it. I gripped Noah's hand tighter, my heart pounding. The party sparkled on, but the air had shifted, heavy with secrets. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something that would shatter the illusion of this perfect night. And I was right. The memory of that conversation still burns, sharp and raw, like a wound that won't heal. 2 weeks before the engagement party, I was in our family's Napa Valley kitchen, the one with marble counters and a view of the vineyards that always felt too perfect, like a stage set for secrets. My mother, Margaret Harper, called me in. Her voice smooth as polished glass, the kind she used when she wanted something big. "Elena, sit down, sweetheart," she said, adjusting her pearl earrings, her smile too tight. I knew that look. It wasn't love, it was strategy. "Your brother's wedding is coming up," she began, her eyes flicking to the doorway where my father, Richard, leaned, arms crossed, watching. Ethan's got his heart set on Maui, a real showstopper at the Grand Wiley. But, well, it's expensive. She paused, letting the words hang, heavy as fog. "And you haven't touched that $150,000 your grandfather left you for your wedding." My stomach twisted. I gripped the edge of the table, my knuckles white. "I'm saving it for my wedding." "Mom, you know that." Margaret's smile didn't waver, but her eyes hardened. "Elena, Ethan's marrying into the Warrens. Old money. Real influence. His wedding has to make a statement. Yours, well, you and Noah can have something sweet, intimate. A courtyard, maybe? Her words cut, each one a dismissal of my dreams. Before I could respond, Richard stepped forward, his voice low, final. It's not a gift, Elena, it's a loan. You'll get it back. But Ethan's wedding comes first. He's the only son. I stared at them. My breath shallow. You want me to give up my future for Ethan's big day? Margaret's face tightened, her voice dropping to a hiss. This isn't about you, Elena. It's about family. The Warrens expect a certain standard. You'd understand if you weren't so selfish. Selfish. The word landed like a slap, but I held my ground. What about Noah? What about me? I asked, my voice shaking. Richard's eyes narrowed, cold as steel. You'll learn what family means when you grow up, he said, then turned and walked out, like my life was a closed case. That wasn't the worst of it. Later that week, I found out Ethan had been whispering lies at my workplace, a nonprofit in San Francisco where I'd been up for a promotion. He'd told my boss I was unreliable, planting doubts to sabotage me. I confronted him at his loft, his smug grin confirming every word. You don't need that job, Elena, he said, sipping whiskey. Focus on being a good sister. My brother, the golden child, wasn't just taking my money. He was trying to take my future. Noah was my rock. His voice steady when mine wavered. They're trying to break you. Elena, don't let them. I wanted to believe him, but the weight of their words, their expectations, pressed harder every day. I'd said no to their demand, but I could feel their resentment building, a storm gathering force. They weren't done with me yet, and I wasn't ready for how far they'd go. The days after that kitchen ambush felt like walking through a minefield. Every glance from my mother, Margaret, carried a silent accusation. Every call from my father, Richard, dripped with impatience. They didn't let up, not for a second. I'd said no to handing over my $150,000 inheritance, but that only lit a fuse in our family, one that burned hotter with every passing day. Napa Valley, with its rolling vineyards and sun-soaked charm, started to feel like a cage, its beauty mocking the ugliness brewing inside our home. Margaret was relentless, her tactics sharpening. One evening, she staged a family dinner at their estate, the long mahogany table set with her best china, a performance of unity. I sat across from Ethan, his smirk barely hidden as he swirled his wine. Elena. You're quiet tonight, Margaret said, her voice syrupy, her eyes like daggers. Still thinking about that money. The room stilled, my relatives, uncles, aunts, cousins shifting in their seats, their side eyes cutting into me. She'd been working them too, whispering that I was selfish, that I was sabotaging Ethan's future with the Warrens. It's just a loan, she pressed, her smile a trap. Why can't you help your brother? I clenched my fork, my pulse racing. Because it's mine. Mom, Grandpa left it for me. For my wedding. Ethan leaned forward, his voice lazy but cruel. Come on, Elena. You and Noah don't need some fancy party. You're not the type. His words were a blade, slicing at my worth. And the table murmured agreement, their judgment suffocating. Richard, at the head, slammed his glass down. Enough, Elena. You're embarrassing us. Do what's right, or you're no part of this family. The threat hung there, raw and real, and I felt Noah's hand brush mine under the table, a quiet reminder to breathe. I left that dinner shaking, my resolve tested but unbroken. Noah pulled me close in our apartment, his voice steady. Your dreams aren't their collateral. Elena, hold the line. I nodded, but the pressure was crushing. Margaret called daily, her tone shifting from fake tears to cold ultimatums. You'll regret this, she said one night, her voice low, venomous. We'll make sure you do. She even rallied my cousins, who started texting me sob stories about Ethan's stress, as if I owed him my future to ease his nerves. Then came the final blow. At a family barbecue, Richard pulled me aside, his face flushed from bourbon. You're out of the will if you don't give Ethan that money, he growled. No inheritance, no invitations, nothing. You'll be alone. Alone. The word echoed, chilling me. I looked across the lawn at Ethan, laughing with his fiancé, carefree, while I fought for scraps of my own life. Margaret stood nearby, watching, her silence louder than any scream. I went home that night and stared at the ceiling. My heart heavy, but my mind clear. They thought they could break me, guilt me, erase me. But something was stirring, a spark of defiance that refused to die. Noah saw it in my eyes, his voice soft but sure. You're stronger than they know. He was right. I wasn't just fighting for my wedding fund anymore. I was fighting for myself. But I had no idea how vicious they'd get, or how far I'd have to go to survive them. The Napa Valley ballroom sparkled that night, a glittering lie that hid the storm about to break. I stood near the dessert table, Noah's arm around me, his warmth the only thing keeping me grounded. The chandeliers cast golden light, champagne flutes clinked, and the string quartet played on, oblivious to the tension coiling in my chest. I'd felt it all evening, Margaret's sharp glances, Ethan's smug entrance, Richard's brooding silence. My engagement party, the night I'd dreamed of, was slipping through my fingers, and I didn't know why. Not yet. Then Richard moved toward me, his steps slow, deliberate, like a predator stalking prey. His face was a mask of forced calm, but his eyes burned, wild with something I couldn't name. Elena, we need to talk, he said, his voice low, teeth gritted. I froze, my heart pounding. Now, in the middle of my engagement, he grabbed my arm, his grip bruising. You're embarrassing this family, he hissed, loud enough for nearby guests to turn. Noah stepped forward, his voice steady but sharp. Sir, with all due respect, let her go. Richard shoved Noah back. Hard! Stay out of it, boy. The music screeched to a halt. The room fell silent. Every eye on us. My pulse roared in my ears as Richard's voice rose, a bellow that shattered the night. You selfish little brat, you owe Ethan everything, and this party, you don't deserve it. I tried to pull away, my voice shaking. Dad, please. But his hand flew up, and before I could flinch, he struck me a backhanded slap that snapped my head to the side. My pearl necklace broke, beads scattering across the marble floor like tears. Time stopped. My cheek burned, my vision blurred, and the gasp of 50 guests echoed like a gunshot. Margaret stood frozen, her hand at her throat, not in horror but in shame, as if I'd brought this on myself. Ethan, leaning against a table, smirked and sipped his drink, his eyes glinting with cruel amusement. Noah rushed to me, his hands gentle on my face, trembling with fury. He just hit you, he whispered, his voice breaking. Your father hit you, Elena, on our engagement night. Richard's face twisted, unrepentant. She brought it on herself. Ungrateful. After all we've done, his words were a blade, but they didn't cut as deep as the silence that followed the silence of a room full of people who'd seen my world collapse and did nothing. I stood there, my cheek throbbing, my dignity in shards. But something inside me shifted, a spark igniting in the wreckage. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I turned to Noah, my voice barely a whisper. "Let's go." He nodded, his jaw tight, and we walked out, my heels clicking against the floor, each step louder than the whispers blooming behind us. I felt their stares, their judgment, but I didn't care. The night air hit my face as we reached the vineyard's edge, and I realized the truth: my family hadn't just betrayed me, they'd declared war. What I didn't know then was that a guest had recorded it, all the slap. Richard's rant, my exit. By morning, the video was online, spreading like wildfire across social media. My humiliation now a public spectacle. My phone buzzed with notifications, strangers' comments piling on, some pitying, some vicious. But as I watched that clip, something hardened in me. They thought they'd broken me. They were wrong. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning, and I was ready to fight back. The morning after the engagement party, my cheek still stung. A cruel reminder of Richard's hand and the silence of everyone who watched. Napa Valley's golden light poured through my apartment window, but it couldn't touch the cold anger settling in my bones. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my phone, the viral video of my humiliation looping in my mind. Richard's snarl, my broken necklace, Ethan's smirk. Notifications buzzed, strangers' words slicing at me. But my family, not a single call, no apology from Margaret, no regret from Richard, not even a text from Ethan. They acted like I'd vanished, like I'd never mattered at all. Noah made coffee, his movements quiet, deliberate. But I saw the tension in his jaw, the fury he was holding back. He slid a mug toward me, his voice soft but firm. "Elena, this isn't just about a slap. They humiliated you, and they'll keep doing it unless you stop them." I nodded, my fingers tracing the mug's warmth, but my mind was already racing. I wasn't the same woman who'd walked into that ballroom, naive and hopeful. Something had snapped, not in weakness, but in power. I was done being their pawn. I stood, my resolve hardening, and crossed to the locked drawer in our bedroom. Inside was a file I hadn't touched in years, one my grandfather had given me before he passed. His words echoed now, clear as ever. "They'll forget you're theirs one day. Elena, this is your shield." I pulled out the paperwork, my hands steady. There it was, the deed to the Harper family estate in Monterey, California, a sprawling coastal mansion they flaunted as their legacy, signed, stamped, legal. Title holder Elena Harper. Not Richard, not Margaret, not Ethan, me. They didn't know. They thought it was still Grandpa's, or maybe theirs after his estate settled. But he'd bypassed them, trusted me, because he saw what they were long before I did. I called Claire Novak, my lawyer, a woman with a voice like steel and a heart that didn't flinch. I spread the deed across the table, and she reviewed it, her eyes sharp. "Elena, you have full legal authority to sell this property," she said, her tone matter of fact. "If you want to move forward, just say the word." I didn't say yes, not yet. I wanted them to feel it coming, to taste the unease they'd fed me for weeks. I drafted a notice, elegant but cold, stating a change in ownership review for the Monterey estate. No threats, just a seed of doubt, mailed in a crisp envelope to their doorstep. As I sealed it, I found something else in the file letters from Grandpa, tucked behind the deed. His handwriting, frail but fierce, laid bare his distrust of Richard and Margaret. "They've squandered enough." He wrote, "This house is your power. Elena, use it when they betray you." My throat tightened, not from sadness, but from clarity. He'd known. He'd armed me for this moment. Noah watched me, his eyes steady. "You're not alone in this," he said, his hand on mine. I nodded. The weight of the letters, the deed, the video, all of it fueling me. They'd tried to erase me, but I was still here, and I held their world in my hands. The notice was just the beginning. I wasn't playing their game anymore. I was rewriting the rules, and they were about to learn what that meant. The notice hit like a quiet bomb. I could almost see Margaret's face when she opened that gold-embossed envelope, her perfectly manicured nails trembling as she read the words, "Ownership Review, Monterey Estate." No explanation, no threat, just the cold weight of truth. I didn't call to gloat. I didn't need to. The silence from their end was louder than any scream. 2 days later, my phone rang. Margaret's voice, usually so composed, cracked like thin ice. "Elena, what is this?" Some kind of joke. I leaned back in my chair. The Monterey deed spread across my desk. No joke. "Mom, it's about the estate." She scoffed, but there was fear in it. "We've lived there for 20 years. You can't just—" I cut her off. My voice calm, deadly. "I can actually? Grandpa left it to me. Not you, not Dad. Me?" The line went quiet, her breathing shallow. "You don't mean to evict us," she whispered, her smugness gone. I smiled, bitter and sharp. "I mean to give you the same consideration you gave me when Dad slapped me in front of 50 guests, and you stood there like I deserved it." She gasped, then launched into a tirade, ungrateful, cruel, heartless. I let her rage, her words bouncing off me like rain on stone. When she paused, breathless, I said, "You have 30 days. Click. The finality of it felt like freedom. I wasn't done. Ethan's wedding was in Maui, a spectacle I hadn't been invited to, not officially, but I went anyway. I wore a sleek black dress, my hair pulled back, my eyes colder than the Pacific. The Grand Wiley's ballroom glittered, all crystal and tropical blooms, but I wasn't there to celebrate. I found Ethan at the reception, his tuxedo crisp, his grin smug as ever. "Didn't expect you here," he said, leaning in, whiskey on his breath. I stepped closer, my voice a whisper. "Enjoy the honeymoon." "Ethan, when you get back, Mom and Dad won't have a home to welcome you." His laugh faltered, his eyes searching mine. He saw it then, the truth. I wasn't bluffing. I turned and left, the clink of champagne glasses fading behind me. Back in Napa, I finalized the sale. Claire Novak handled the details, her efficiency a quiet kind of power. I didn't sell the Monterey estate to just anyone. I chose a developer with a vision, a community center for women escaping toxic families, built where the Harper mansion once stood. The contract was signed, the notice posted on their gate in bold red "Property sold. Vacate within 14 days. My phone exploded missed calls, voicemails, texts, Margaret's pleas, Richard's threats, Ethan's curses. I didn't answer. They'd made their choices. Now I'd made mine. They showed up at my apartment a week later, their faces pale, their pride in tatters. Richard pounded on the door, his voice hoarse. "You think this is fair, throwing us out like trash?" I stepped onto the porch, my arms crossed. Fair. Was it fair when you hit me at my engagement, or when you chose Ethan over me for 28 years? Margaret's eyes welled, but her tears didn't move me. "We gave you everything," she said, her voice breaking. I shook my head. "You took everything. I'm just returning the favor." Ethan stood behind them, silent, his usual smirk gone. I looked at him, the brother who'd sabotaged my job, mocked my dreams. Got nothing to say, I asked. He looked away, his jaw tight. They begged, their voices raw, desperate. But I was done. I watched them shuffle back to Ethan's truck, their lives packed in cardboard boxes, the weight of their choices crushing them. As they drove off, the Monterey estate loomed in my mind not as their legacy, but as mine. I'd torn it down to build something better. They'd lost their home, but I'd found my power. And this was only the start. 3 months after I sold the Monterey estate, the dust settled. But the echoes of that night in Napa lingered, sharp and unyielding. Noah and I packed our lives into boxes and left for Portland, Oregon, chasing a fresh start where the air didn't carry the weight of betrayal. Our new apartment overlooked the Willamette River, its steady flow a quiet promise of renewal. I walked those streets, the city's gray skies and vibrant coffee shops, wrapping me in a strange kind of peace. But healing wasn't instant. Some nights, I'd wake up, my cheek burning with the ghost of Richard's slap. The viral video's comments clawing at my mind. I was rebuilding, but I wasn't whole not yet. Then came the call that changed everything. Thomas Reed, a CEO I'd interned for years ago at a San Francisco urban development firm, reached out, his voice warm, familiar. "Elena, I've seen your housing justice work," he said. "That nonprofit campaign you led brilliant. We're opening a Portland branch, and I want you to run it. Director, full control." My heart stopped. "You're offering me an executive role?" I asked, my voice catching. "Damn right," he said, chuckling. "You're the one for this." I accepted, the weight of his trust heavier than any inheritance. Portland welcomed me with open arms. But the real test came at the company's gala in Los Angeles. 6 months later, I stood on a stage, lights blinding, my black dress hugging my frame, and spoke about betrayal, not the raw, bloody details. But enough. "Family can break you," I said, my voice steady. "But it's what you build from the pieces that defines you." The room went silent, then erupted in applause. My speech hit social media, spreading faster than that Napa video. But this time, it wasn't shame, it was power. A young woman stopped me by the elevator, her eyes wet. "My parents forced me to pay for my sister's college," she said, trembling. "Your words, they gave me courage to say no." I hugged her, my throat tight. My pain wasn't just mine anymore. It had purpose. Back in Portland, I poured myself into my work. With the estate sale funds, I launched Safe Haven, a nonprofit for women escaping toxic families. Its first office opened downtown, a small space filled with hope, where survivors could find resources, counseling, a way forward. Every signature on a lease, every woman who walked through those doors, felt like a brick in a new foundation, one my family couldn't touch. Noah was there, always. His quiet strength, my anchor. "You're unstoppable," he'd say, his smile soft, and I'd believe him. I didn't look back. Not really. The Harper estate was gone, its manicured lawns and ocean views replaced by a community center rising in Monterey, a beacon for those who'd been cast aside. I'd turned their legacy to ash and built something better. My phone stayed quiet. No calls from Margaret, Richard, or Ethan. They were ghosts now, their absence a gift. I stood on my balcony, Portland's lights flickering below, and felt it not just survival, but triumph. I'd lost a family, But I'd gained a life, and I was just getting started. Portland's rain tapped against my window, a soft rhythm that matched the quiet in my heart. A year had passed since that night in Napa, since Richard's slap, since I sold the Monterey estate and walked away from the family that tried to erase me. The scars were still there, faint but real. Not just on my cheek, but in the moments I'd wake, heart racing, wondering if I'd gone too far. But then I'd see the safe haven office, its walls lined with thank you notes from women who'd found their way, and I'd know I hadn't just survived. I'd built something unbreakable. The Harper estate was gone, its marble halls and ocean views reduced to memory. In its place stood a community center in Monterey, a haven for single mothers, funded by the very money my family tried to steal. I could imagine Margaret and Richard driving past, seeing my name on the plaque, Elena Harper, founder, and feeling the weight of their choices. I didn't need their apology, their tears, their anything. I'd stopped looking for them in the silence. They were my past. Safe haven. Noah. Portland. These were my future. But this story isn't just about me. It's about what we do when the people we love betray us, when the ground crumbles beneath our feet. Here's what I learned. What I hope you carry with you. First, set boundaries early. Don't wait for a slap, a scream, a viral video to say no. Your worth isn't negotiable, and the sooner you claim it, the stronger you'll stand. Second, your pain has purpose. Every tear, every wound can fuel something bigger, a mission, a dream, a hand reaching out to lift someone else. Turn your hurt into hope. Third, choose your family. Blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. Surround yourself with people like Noah, who see your light even when you can't. I never saw Margaret, Richard, or Ethan again. They're out there, somewhere, living with the ashes of their choices. But me, I'm here, in Portland, building a life that's mine. Safe haven grows every day. And so do I. My pain became my power, my loss, my legacy. So, I ask you, what's your story? What boundaries have you set? What pain have you turned into purpose? Share it below, and let's keep this conversation going. Subscribe, comment, tell me where you're watching from, because we're not just survivors. We're builders, dreamers, unstoppable. As I write this, I believe Elena's journey, my journey, matters because it's proof we can rise from betrayal stronger, fiercer, kinder. The community center, safe haven. They're not just buildings. They're reminders that healing isn't revenge. It's rebirth. And that's the legacy I choose.